Good morning, this is the week 17 Viva. This week's Viva question is, who was Julius Caesar? Today, most people best remember Julius Caesar for his tragic death and famous last words immortalized by Shakespeare. But because of the drama of his death, we don't often think about how his personality drove him to become so beloved and hated at the same time. Julius Caesar was a creative thinker whose childhood experiences helped him become a strategic innovator capable of dealing with nearly anything that life threw at him. The three things we're going to look at today dealing with Julius Caesar are his youth, his military career, and his politics. So firstly, the intense political climate of late Republican Rome shaped Julius Caesar's life, forcing him to become an enormously resourceful and resilient so that he could face the challenging times he lived in. Caesar was born into a noble house of Rome called the Julia, probably hence his name. Although the Julia had ancestral ties to their aristocracy, they had since fallen in power and were not as powerful as they once were. So Julius Caesar was expected to live out his life as a relatively minor member of the aristocracy. However, he unexpectedly became the head of his family when his father died. He was 15 when this happened. To add to his already difficult position, his family had aligned themselves with a politician named Gaius Marius. Marius had a strong political enemy called Sulla. Their rivalry eventually led to what is known as the Social War. This was a civil war between Rome, its immediate surroundings, and her Italian allies. The cause of this was that as Rome expanded, her Italian allies wanted more rights of citizenship. They wanted reforms to the distribution of the spoils of war, land, and they wanted an input and say into foreign policy. A Roman politician proposed such reforms, but was assassinated after doing so. This is what triggered the Social War. The war itself was brief, containing only two majorly important battles. Instead of continued conflict, Rome made some significant concessions to their opponents, like specific granting of citizenship to towns or specific people willing to travel to Rome to vote, and this was enough to halt the conflict. Marius, however, had been on the losing side, if there was a losing side, and Sulla became dictator of Rome and stripped Caesar of his priestship, which Marius had appointed him to. Caesar had to flee and was actually arrested while hiding out, but he escaped after bribing his captors. According to Plutarch, quote, Caesar concealed himself from Sulla, till one night as he was moving from one house to another. He was captured by Sulla's soldiers. Caesar bribed his captor, a centurion named Cornelius, with 2 talents, unquote. Caesar left Rome, and he actually went to Turkey to join their military, and he distinguished himself for his bravery. After Sulla's death, he returned to Rome to become a lawyer. And while in Rome, he decided that he was going to go to the city of Rhodes to better study public speaking. While on his way there, he was captured by a band of pirates, and they told him, we want you to gather 4 talents for us so we can ransom him. And he said, guys, you're missing out. I am not worth 4 talents. I am worth 50 talents. And so he stays with them while his friends are gathering the money, and he treats them in the most ridiculous way, like he's not even their prisoner. And when they displease him, he threatens to hang them. After he is ransomed, he is set loose, and he goes to the nearest port town, commandeers a fleet of ships, sails back to the pirates' island, catches them unawares, and has them all crucified. After that, he joined the military and participated in another war, and thus began a new chapter in his life. Secondly, our second point is going to be how, as one of the greatest military strategists in history, Julius Caesar's innovative thinking and willingness to utilize Rome's engineering expertise gave him the ability to win many of Rome's most impressive military victories. Caesar used military action and political alliances to move rapidly through the ranks. He eventually became the governor of Spain, and in the process made 2 very influential friends. One was a wealthy man named Crassus, who gained his wealth by, in part, financing the firefighting systems of Rome, mysteriously, houses would often catch on fire, and this guy would show up with his firefighting force and offer to buy the house from the person who owned it. And the person would gladly agree because their house is burning and it's going to burn down, so get what money you can. So Crassus would pay the guy the money, and his firefighter crew would put the fire out, and there would be little to no damage, and shortly he would sell the house for a great profit. So this was one of Julius Caesar's friends. The other was Rome's most distinguished general, called Pompey. These three men agreed to mutually support one another, Crassus providing the money, Caesar the political backing, and Pompey the celebrity status, kind of. In addition to this, Pompey eventually married Caesar's daughter, further cementing the ties between them. In reality, Caesar was just using these two men to advance his own political rank. He became consul in 59 BC and governor of Gaul in 58 BC. And Caesar quickly began to mount incursions into the area of Gaul and subdue several of the major tribes. He set back action-filled reports that made the public love him. With his political muscle, Caesar was extending his governorship, and he used the extra time to cross the Rhine and also invade England, things that had never been done before. To cross the Rhine, Caesar ordered a bridge to be built. The Rhine was 1,000 feet wide at the point he chose, 25 to 30 feet deep with unknown currents. The bridge was built by driving piles diagonally into the riverbed, kind of like this, and then planks would be laid across like that, and then those would be covered with poles, and then bundles of sticks. And the amazing thing about this is that they actually built the bridge in 10 days. It only took them 10 days to build this massive bridge, which we probably could not do with the same technology today. And when Caesar crossed the bridge, the Germanic tribes that were waiting for him were so terrified because of how fast he had done that they just ran away. So Caesar roamed around Germania for 18 days and then returned to the other side of the Rhine and then dismantled his bridge. One Roman soldier said while undergoing events like these, quote, "Leap, fellow soldiers, unless you wish to betray your eagle to the enemy. I, for my part, will perform my duty to the Republic and to my general." Unquote. Oh. However, back in Rome, Caesar's alliances were beginning to crumble. Crassus had wanted some of that same political aplomb that Caesar had, and so he had invaded Parthia, but was killed there. And Pompey, who had been married to Caesar's daughter, he had been out of the way because he was so infatuated with her that he wasn't really doing anything, which was fine with Caesar. But his daughter died in childbirth, and Pompey looked around and realized that Caesar was stealing all of his fame. So he started to get back into the political action and actually becomes one of Caesar's political enemies. Which brings us to our third and final point, how building on his military success and fame, Julius Caesar turned his brilliant mind to the central question of consolidating his political power in Rome. He used innovative strategies to improve the lives of the Romans, and was also able to acquire a vast network of supporters, which ironically helped lead to his assassination. After his military victories, Caesar became very popular with the people, but the senators began to fear that he would copy Sulla's brutal takeover. Pompey, Caesar's former friend, joined these senators and made the claim that he could stamp his foot anywhere and soldiers would spring up. Problem was that most of these soldiers he was talking about were actually living on land given to them by Caesar, and so they actually ended up siding with Caesar. Caesar crossed the Rubicon into Rome. Pompey and the senators were forced to flee, but they forgot about the treasury that they left behind, so Caesar was basically able to walk into Rome and found a massive pile of gold waiting for him. Caesar and Pompey battled for a while, but Caesar eventually beat Pompey at the Battle of Pharsalus. Initially, Pompey's army had exploited a weakness in Caesar's army and beaten Caesar's army back, but failed to pursue them. Caesar remarked on this, quote, "Today the victory had been the enemy's, had there been anyone among them to gain it," unquote. But Caesar won back the ground, and Pompey was forced to flee to Egypt. However, he was assassinated upon reaching it. Caesar was disgusted by this, as he had been meaning to pardon Pompey, and he had his assassins killed. Upon his arrival in Rome and his commencement of politics, Caesar promptly reformed the calendar because it really needed some work. And in 44 BC, he was elected dictator for life, which was something that had not been done before, and some senators were starting to get worried. They were starting to think that he was planning to make himself king because of the power he had gained, and he was starting to wear purple, which was a color associated with kingship. Brutus was one of the men who had joined them. Brutus was a man who had fought against Julius Caesar, but Caesar had pardoned him, but Brutus felt that in the interest of his country, he needed to help stop Caesar. They assassinated him on March 15th, 42 BC. And it's said that when Caesar saw that Brutus was one of the men who was assassinating him, he stopped struggling, just horrified that someone who he had been so kind to could betray him, and he promptly died. After a short time of disarray after his murder, Caesar's nephew Octavian became emperor, ending the Roman Republic and bringing about the dawn of Roman expansion and empire. So, in conclusion, although Julius Caesar is best remembered for his tragic end, we don't often think about how his personality drove him to become so beloved and hated. By looking at his youth, military career, and his politics, we can see how Caesar was a creative thinker and strategic innovator whose experiences helped prepare him for almost everything that life threw at him. Thank you.